Okay, so you watched part one where we got access to this property. And I revealed what were the numbers that we're expecting, what were the numbers for acquisition, what we expect to do with this property. So in this video, I'm going to reveal how do we actually get this property and what was the headache and the nightmare and the roller coaster of experiences that we had to go through in order to actually get the key and step foot into the property to start the transformation. So watch out as I reveal it in this video. So we're midway through, we've had around 2 to 3 weeks on the refurb so far. And you're probably looking at the front garden and there's not much being done. Hold my hands up, we still need to work on that, but that's gonna be part of the later work to be done. So let's go in. And so far what we've done is we've changed the carpets, we've redecorated, we've scrapped a lot of the rubbish that was in the property before. And now it's just finishing touches like the bathroom, there's some changes that need to be done and some snags. The kitchen, the bulk of the work's been done. There's a lot of cleaning needed. So let me show you. You might see it in this, but in a lot of the windows, and we'll show you upstairs, there's loads of dirt in them. Huge amounts of dirt. So much so that it's actually keeping some of the pungent smell in the property. Oh well, I did promise to share with you how did we even get this property and what was the mayhem we had to go through in order to access the property. So let me share with you, how do we get this property? First of all, we've been investing in North East for the last 10 plus years, us and our clients. So through those years, we have contacts, relationships, we spend thousands on marketing because we're doing loads of property deals every single month and year. So this particular property came from us from a past seller. So they've got a huge amount of properties in their portfolio, and it was time that they were looking to move on. So they had this property which they said they would like to move on from. So we know around this area that the property prices are going up and the quality of tenants and rents going up as well. However, the issue that they had was a problem tenant. Now, for clients, I tend to not recommend that they have tenants that have records of problems. Having a tenanted property is very good, especially because it's income from day one. However, when you have a history of a tenant paying on time, but not being of the quality needed, usually for ourselves we'd walk away, but the deal for us was a very strong one. So we just couldn't turn it down. So we actually agreed on a price, and the price, as you can recall from the last video, was 82,000. From the full breakdown, go back to video 1. We agreed on that, and actually it took us quite a few months to go through because there were some issues with funding. We were gonna get a bridging loan, there was complications around that. So in the end, we just brought the cash in ourselves and bought the property. Now that, in the grand scheme of things, was the easy part. Now, our vision for this property was to come in and from day one, look to work with the tenant to move them on because they were paying a rent of £415, but rent in this area has jumped significantly. So we were gonna help them move on, increase the value of the property, make this property a really nice property, and then house it with a tenant that could afford to pay a bit more. Now, the challenging part is that this tenant actually, as I mentioned before, was a historically challenging tenant. They were paying their rent, but the standard of the property was deteriorating. There was issues getting access to repair maintenance works, which then went from a small repair or maintenance to a huge one, costing the owner back then a lot more money. So actually, for the interest of ourselves, as well as the property and the community, it was about moving that tenant on. But the tricky part came in that process. So we issued Section 21, and usually with Section 21, a tenant is notified so that we would like to get access to the property within 60 days. Section 21 was submitted. 60 days later, tenant hadn't moved out, nor were they communicating with the letting agent. We even offered to pay for the first month's rent and a deposit for their next property, but they said nothing. They effectively did not want to work with us. So we were forced down the route of the legal system. Now, we have a really good solicitor with a lot of history and experience with dealing with this. We had submitted our court papers around the end of January, and within March, April, the courts decided that we had the right to access the property, and the tenant was then notified of the court decision. Date came along, property was still being filled by the tenant. So we then had to escalate matters and ask for bailiffs to come in. So a date was set, and that date was actually the day of my birthday. So the date came along and the bailiffs came in and helped the tenant move on. We wish that we didn't have to go down that route, actually, because we were, as I mentioned before, we were willing to help the tenant find a new residence, pay for the first month's rent, pay for the deposit. And we also knew from neighbours and the past owner that they weren't very happy about the tenant. They had pets that were causing rodents and issues with neighbouring properties, and there was a history of some social disturbance. So now the tenant's moved on, we've now got access to property, and as you've seen, we're making some real good progress. So that ends part 2. You've seen how we got access to property. You've seen how we come across these really great deals for us and our clients. Now, look out for video part 3, where I'm going to show you the full completed refurbishment, the full numbers behind it, and what is the return on investment that we have achieved.